Hey, what's up everybody? Hammerheart Metal Reviews here once again. Today we're doing another edition in my series where I go through 5 random CDs from my CD collection. Basically just CDs that I've had in the car this last week. Stuff that I've been listening to that maybe I haven't talked about on the channel before, or maybe I have. But yeah, not really any rhyme or reason to the ones that I'm picking. I try to switch up the genre so it's not just 5 black metal albums. I got a good mix of stuff today, so without further ado, I'm just going to get right into this. I've done one of these every month since the start of the year, so this is September. This is volume number 9. Let's see which albums I'm talking about today. So I'm going to kick it off with some Canadian content with one of my favorite current Canadian bands, and that is Riot City, here with their debut album Burn the Night. So if you are unfamiliar with this band, this is some traditional heavy metal, speed metal, whatever you want to call it, major dose of Judas Priest influence here. You can just feel the Priest running through their veins, as well as just other classic metal from the 80s. This feels like it could have come from the 80s. This is just full of really energetic riffs and high-pitched wailing vocals. Really amazing stuff, especially for a debut. Their second album is great as well, but this debut, it just really stood out at the time, and I still listen to this all the time. First few tracks here, Warrior of Time, the title track, Burn the Night, then you got Living Fast, Halloween at Midnight. This whole album just rips. If you've never given these guys a chance before, do yourself a favor and go check them out. Even look at that album art too. You can tell the Priest influence is just even bleeding through the album art as well. But I don't want to just compare it to Judas Priest. There's a lot of different stuff going on here as well, but this is just a great example of modern throwback metal, new wave of traditional heavy metal, really sped up. You could call this speed metal in parts, and just the vocals are really awesome as well. This album was still the guitarist doing lead vocals. On the second album, they brought in a new vocalist. But yeah, I love both albums. I'd be hard-pressed to even pick which one is better. But for today, I was talking about the debut. Go give Burn the Night by Riot City a listen if you have not. Alright, up next, we're going to switch to some death metal with Vital Remains and their album Icons of Evil. So if you are unfamiliar with this band, probably most well known for, at least on this album and the one before, featuring Glenn Benton from Deicide on lead vocals. This is very satanically themed death metal, as you can tell from the album art here, which just makes me laugh, just smashing Jesus there with a hammer. It's yeah, it's very comical, not to be taken too seriously, but the guitar and musicianship on this album is definitely to be taken seriously. David Suzuki just shreds guitar. The solos here are so melodic and technical, and it just it's got this aggressive death metal, but then such melodicism over top, and his playing is so good, and he's drums as well, and non-stop blast beats, and then you got the typical Glenn Benton layering of the vocals with the high pitch and the low grunts at the same time, and it just all meshes together perfectly. Tony Lazzaro is the main man behind the band. He's been there from the beginning. Yeah, the rhythm guitar player, and this album is just front to back really sick. Icons of Evil, Born to Rape the World, Hammer Down the Nails is so goddamn catchy. You will be singing along to these songs, and the riffs, you will be headbanging non-fucking stop. This combined with the previous album, Dechristianize, are the two albums by Vital Remains that feature Glenn Benton. The rest of their material is great too. Don't only listen to the Glenn Benton albums. I'm just pulling this one out mostly because I wanted to show that hilarious album art. I think it's pretty funny. But yeah, if you've never listened to Vital Remains, this is a great album to start with. Alright, up next, let's switch gears completely once again. And we are going to talk about some symphonic metal with Spires and their sophomore album here, Emerald Seas. So this is an absolutely excellent band. This was actually the album that I discovered the band on. When their debut came out, I didn't really hear anything about it. But then when this album dropped, it really alerted me to them, and for good reason, because this album kicks ass. I went back and listened to their debut after this album, and while I think the debut was okay, and they definitely showed some promise, they really delivered on that promise on this sophomore album, Emerald Seas. This is a concept record, basically about someone searching for immortality. You got really cool concept here. I always love concept stories, reading the lyrics from start to finish. This really tells a story. And when I'm saying this is a symphonic metal band, there's so many different elements at play here that they're not afraid to just stick in one genre. They're not afraid to experiment and pull in some different things. The base of this album, yeah, is symphonic power metal. This is probably their most power metal forward record out of their 4 albums. But that's not to say they're not bringing in other elements. There's progressive elements. There's even melodic death metal and even some black metal in there as well, all over top of this symphonic metal base with a lot of power metal in there. Like, you can go song to song and the style shifts completely. You'll have some straight ahead power metal bangers like Succumb or Every Crest, and then you'll go into a heavier song like Drowner of Worlds or Fearless, and then you'll even have a beautiful ballad like Silvery Moon, or you close the album with The Trouble with Eternal Life. Like, they just really know how to deliver, and even though the styles may shift from song to song, it's still all cohesive, and it just sounds like Seven Spires. I absolutely love this band, love everything they've done. Like I said, the debut maybe wasn't my favorite, but this album kicks ass. The ones after this, Gods of Debauchery, and then their new album from this year, A Fortress Called Home, is absolutely amazing as well. But if you've never heard the band before, I think this is a great album to start with. Go check out Emerald Seas. It'll give you a good taste of what they're all about. Yeah, killer stuff. The guitar playing is really emotional and like soulful. And the vocalist, Adrienne Cowan, she does all the orchestrations as well. And she's just a top-notch musician that really pours her heart and soul into this. The lyrics are amazing. This is like poetry written over top of the music. Honestly, I could gush about this band all day. Just really killer stuff. Go listen to Seven Spires if you haven't. Alright, that's 3 albums in. I haven't really talked about any black metal yet. That's a surprise for this channel. For this series, I'm usually at least sprinkling in a couple, but that's going to change right now. We're going to get into some black metal. I'm going to go with Ancient Mastery with their EP here, The Chosen One. So this is a band that I have talked about on numerous occasions on this channel, mostly about their album Chapter 2. Their first album, Chapter 1, then this EP came out, and then Chapter 2 was after that. But this EP, I really dig as well. This is actually a pretty recent acquisition for me. I have the other 2 albums in like the full lengths, but this EP was one that I had yet to track down, but I just finally got it. It's only 5 tracks, and where their other albums are more concept stories, this one, I think the 3 first songs on here were meant as like one EP, and then the other 2 were kind of separate digital singles. So it maybe doesn't have the same cohesive story like the other 2 albums do, but the tracks on here are just really killer. If you're unfamiliar with this band, I'll describe them as epic black metal, but they're from Austria. It's a one-man band. So when I say that, you think of a band like Summoning, and while there's some similarities there, I wouldn't just call it that. This is another band that's not afraid to throw in some different elements. Like, they'll bring in some power metal style riffing and even some almost like pop sensibilities when they bring in a female vocalist to just do some nice choruses over top. But the root of this is still epic black metal, and he's got this great raspy voice and just really killer guitar riffs that are going to stick in your head. You got a song like the title track here, The Chosen One, absolutely amazing. To Bear the Sword, Ad Mortem, everything on here, start to back, absolutely killer. Strongly recommend you go check out everything Ancient Mastery's done. But yeah, this one's probably a little more underrated because it is just an EP, but definitely worth checking out. Okay, last but certainly not least, this is probably the most well-known album on this list today. One of my favorites, Running Wild with Death or Glory. So if you are unfamiliar with Running Wild, change that. I mean, this is a classic band. This would be the band that kind of originated the pirate metal theme, I guess you could say. But when they started out, it wasn't all about pirates. This is just classic traditional heavy metal, speed metal, power metal from Germany. Whatever genre you want to slap on there, it works. Rock and Roll, the main guy behind the band, just a riff machine. These songs are so goddamn catchy. The choruses are going to stick in your head. You'll be galloping along. You'll be wishing you were on a pirate ship and just headbanging along. Like, these choruses stand the test of time. This is probably my favorite Running Wild album, which is saying something because their whole discography is fucking killer. But yeah, this some of the best songs on here. Riding the Storm, all-time classic. One of my favorite Running Wild songs ever, for sure. Renegade is amazing. Battle of Waterloo, closing track here. I mean, I say closing track, but this release actually came with a few bonus tracks, so there's some extras at the end, but I think that was the original closing track. But yeah, front to back, absolutely amazing goddamn album. If you've never listened to Running Wild, go start with this album. Just even go listen to the first song, Riding the Storm. That'll tell you whether you're going to like Running Wild or not. And if you do, then you're going to be in store for tons of great riffs throughout the rest of the album and the rest of their discography as well. So go check out Running Wild if you haven't. So that's my 5 albums for today. You know the deal by now. Not too much more to say on this. You can look forward to another one of these next month. So until then, Hammerheart Metal Reviews out.